We are enjoying a beautiful morning out here in Iowa today. Um, CI Chit Chat. If anyone's new, we're talking carbon intensity, or basically the carbon footprint per bushel of our production, and therefore the carbon footprint of whatever our agricultural crops go into. For the most part, we're talking biofuels and the carbon footprint of biofuels. I'm talking that because of 45Z, the clean fuel production tax credit. A lot of updates here today, variety of things going on. It's maybe a lot of you are watching. DC is quite the place right now, quite the place to be, and interesting stuff going on. And we have to just continue to monitor, basically by the minute, by the hour, as things continue to progress throughout DC. So maybe I'll kind of jump in and just dive right in and go from there. So 45Z is part of the current versions of the Big Beautiful Bill. The big tax, 900 and some page tax bill that they are working on right now. The House put it in their version of the Big Beautiful Bill, so month and a half ago, whatever that was. But now, of course, the Senate is working on it. So it got out of the Senate Finance Committee, and now it's on the Senate floor. They did their vote-a-rama here yesterday and all through the night. I'm sure we have a lot of very tired senators in DC here today, but they're gonna have to suck it up because they got a long week ahead. And I think they knew that this was coming. So what's going on is, of course, a lot of political games. It's what always happens with these gigantic mega spending packages. But they've been voting around, putting through all these different proposed amendments and stuff to the bill, and then they discuss it and throw out most of them, and a couple things end up sticking and making it in. But what is currently being talked about with 45Z is basically some amendments to the Inflation Reduction Act and 45Z, that of course was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So, big beautiful bill amending the Inflation Reduction Act with a couple of key items. One is, when would the program end? In the House version of the bill and in the committee version of the bill, they said let's keep 45Z through 2031. So that would be a multi-year extension from what was supposed to be a program that ended in 2027. So amending the bill so that 45Z would not end in 2027, rather would end after 2031, which would be awesome, of course, give us some more time to build this all out and make things happen. But what is currently in the Senate version of the bill is that 45Z will end after 2029. So instead of being a 4-year extension, it's been whittled back a little bit to a 2-year extension now. Rather than 4-year. My opinion is any extension is great, but most important is that it's in there and we can then actually get some clarity and get the rules put together. So anyway, extension, that's a key one. They've been arguing about the inclusion of foreign feedstock. There was a version that said only North American feedstock. Then there was a version that said any foreign feedstock is fine, but it'll get a discount. So it won't be eligible for the full credit amount. It'll be a discounted amount. And now it sounds like they're back to North America only, as in the current Senate version of the bill. We'll see what ends up happening there. I'm assuming now back to North America only. That is in alignment with what the House wanted. So now Senate and the House kind of talking the same talk on that front, and probably just having side conversations and whatnot, and trying to make sure that they're in alignment and that one doesn't have to be tossed back and forth later. So likely restriction just to North American feedstock, and we're seeing some response on that already with especially the canola market. I've seen some stuff about that, responding positively to restricting, keeping out Chinese used cooking oil. That's really what it boils down to, is the big issue that they're trying to avoid. So we got that going on. Transferability is the other really big sticking point. In the House version, they said you would not be able to generate the tax credit and then transfer it or sell it to a secondary buyer, at least after 2027. You wouldn't be able to transfer it. The Senate has got that fixed. And they're saying, no, you would be able to transfer the credit. This is an incredibly important one, especially that there's still plenty of the ethanol plants, of course, that are co-ops or partnerships and stuff that are locally owned, including by a lot of farmers that own shares in the ethanol plants. The ethanol plants pass through the tax liability to the shareholders. They don't pay their own corporate income tax. The federal taxes are passed on to the shareholders. So therefore, if you're not paying corporate income tax, it's hard to direct to monetize the tax credit if you don't have federal income tax to offset. So you would transfer them instead. Or even if you do have federal tax and you had extra credits left over after offsetting your own tax liability, you would want to sell those credits in the secondary market. The House version of the bill was restricting that. Senate is saying no, you should be able to transfer those credits, which is a really, really important thing, especially for the farmers and for the scalable financial viability of the program. The alternative would be you'd have some plants that would basically generate enough credits to not pay any more taxes, and they can't do anything to really transfer the leftover ones. So then I guess you just stop, So, and that would whittle down the value of all this. So transferability, really big deal, but looking positive on the Senate side of things. So we'll see what happens there. What else? The indirect land use change piece. There's still everything that I've seen so far is to basically ignore the concept of indirect land use change, which helps lower the carbon intensity scores across the board. That also helps, especially on the soybean side, to fight off foreign feedstocks and be more competitive. It helps on the corn side of things as well. Lowers ethanol CI score by about 7 points across the board, which is a really big deal, especially with carbon capture and pipelines being significantly, delayed and just not there at scale to be able to get the CI reduction from a carbon capture system. Getting a better reduction by discluding indirect land use change, a really, really big deal that would enable a lot more ethanol plants to be able to qualify easier by just working with the farmers versus having to wait until they get carbon capture. Um, so that is a big one that really helps, especially in the short term here. What else? I think those are the major ones. Then there's one other item is there's been a lot of back and forth about the alcohol to jet pathway and sustainable aviation fuel. And in some of the versions of the bill that have gone back and forth, the ability to use ethanol and turn it into sustainable aviation fuel, it was basically going to be a no-go in a couple of the versions of the bill that's gone back and forth. There were some murmurs that our Iowa Senator Joni Ernst was going to be introducing an amendment that would really help SAF. And the draft of the amendment that I saw is that basically a ethanol producer could earn the 45Z credit and for just producing their ethanol, and it's a done deal. They could sell it to be blended and utilized in our vehicles on the road, or it could be sold to SAF. Doesn't matter. The ethanol plant would be able to get the credit, plus the SAF producer would be able to get the credit. So I can definitely see the argument for it being double dipping, but it does solve the problem of the alcohol to jet pathway being financially viable. Without going into too many of the details, here's why it wouldn't be financially viable before. If your ethanol was generating a tax credit of, say, 50 cents a gallon, like pretty significant. When you convert 1.7 gallons of ethanol into 1 gallon of SAF, and you have the increased emissions from the production of the SAF, you lower the CI score, or sorry, you hurt the CI score of the SAF because you have the emissions of converting ethanol to SAF, right? Which would release emissions in the atmosphere and utilize energy in that process. So you'd have increased emissions plus that conversion of 1.7 gallons to 1 gallon of ethanol of SAF, it whittles down the financial value. And instead of being worth 50 cents a gallon on all 1.7 gallons, now it's only worth, call it 20 some cents a gallon on 1 gallon. So, creating a higher credit on more gallons versus a smaller credit on fewer gallons, even with um, the credit being worth, instead of a max value of $1 a gallon, SAF is worth a max value of $1.75 a gallon. Even with that increased value, it still doesn't make up for the increased emissions of that process and the conversion factor of 1.7 gallons to 1 gallon. So, by saying, hey, you can get the credit on the ethanol and you can get a credit on the SAF production side, it does, you know, it basically makes it an option now to utilize your ethanol as SAF, where before you would say, well, why would we want to whittle down our credit? Let's not use our ethanol as SAF. Let's just use our ethanol as regular ethanol. And SAF, sorry, you got to go figure it out a different route. This now makes alcohol to jet significantly more viable. But the last that I saw is that Senator Ernst had not yet introduced that amendment and actually like officially taken it to the floor. So I don't know what the status of it is, or if that's gonna end up, squeaking through here today or not. And of course, was watching for the Senate to actually get their vote done over the night. And from what I'd seen and trying to research into it here this morning, they still have not yet had the official final vote in the Senate. But some of the stuff that I was reading here today is that they are anticipating getting that vote done here today. So the Senate getting their vote done and then passing things over to the House. Now, plenty of headlines about some holdouts from the Republican side. Obviously, they have a thin margin to begin with. And even with, when they started going into some of the conversations over the weekend, they had brought in Vice President J.D. Vance to be a potential tiebreaker, basically utilize his vote if need be. We'll see what happens. And I know there's obviously a lot of jockeying and politics going on right now to try to get the Republican votes put together to get things passed. And obviously a heck of a lot of pressure from President Trump to get this thing done. Obviously, all the headlines, all the stuff has been, this bill is going to get signed on July 4th. This bill is going to get signed on July 4th. And if they don't get that done, number one, Trump's going to be super mad. But also, it's just they're some of the media backlash is going to be tough for the on the Republican side. So I assume they're gonna try to keep ramming it through and get it to Trump on the 4th, but well, I guess we'll see. So, but things, at least from a 45Z side of things, everything that we've seen shows 45Z being included. There's a couple nuances that would make it even more favorable, but just to have it included and let the administration actually go and finalize the rules, that's obviously what we need. We need clarity that this is gonna carry on. Looks like that's gonna happen. And then we need to get the final rules, which that's gonna take another couple months, but at least by getting the bill finalized and saying we're protecting this program, at least we can move forward there. Bob, good to have you on. Could an ethanol plant in Nebraska create SAF if they are on a carbon capture pipeline? So Bob, the ethanol plant itself would not be able to create SAF. It's an add-on process. So what you would do is you could have an ethanol plant that has their carbon capture. Therefore, that carbon capture system reduces the CI score by about 32 points. Right. So if you had a 52 today, now with carbon capture, now your CI score of the ethanol is a 20. Very, very low. Plus, of course, you can stack the low carbon farming practices, which we've shown to have an average CI reduction of 18 points. And now you could be very close to ethanol with a CI score of 0. But then you've got to have an add-on facility to convert the SAF into, or convert the ethanol into SAF. So it's not just that you can super easily retrofit your ethanol plant to produce SAF. Like it's a fairly significant investment, and that's why there's so few that have been able to move forward and get that done so far. So basically, what you'd have to do, Bob, is add on an ethanol plant, basically call it right next door to the, or sorry, add a SAF plant right next door to the ethanol plant, or maybe tag team with a hub of a couple of ethanol plants all go together to produce one mega SAF plant or something like that. Saying ADM is going to add on and hooked into Trailblazer. Yeah, so a lot of plants I would assume would look to add on SAF, but that's basically like it is a process. Like it's not just going to be they're producing SAF here this year. Like it is a lot of money and it's a long process that's going to take to be able to do that. But am sure a lot of plants would look to add on sustainable aviation fuel production to their ethanol capacity. Of course, Gevo, would be a classic example of that, right? They start with, their main focus is sustainable aviation fuel, but they bought the Red Trail ethanol plant up in North Dakota because it already has carbon capture, and they can have super low carbon ethanol to then get that low carbon ethanol into their SAF production facilities. But a lot of plants, I'm sure, yeah, they'll look to add on the SAF piece, especially if you're able to get credit for both. Now, I did see the question come up, and I don't believe it's been answered yet. That what if ADM had the ethanol plant and earned the 45Z credit on the ethanol, and they own the SAF plant, and they try to get the 45Z credit on the SAF? Would they be able to do that since it's the same taxpayer, basically going after the credit on both of those items? I would assume that that would not be allowed. You'd have to sell the ethanol to I think they call it a third party entity or a disregarded entity, or there's something like that in the terminology, that in order to qualify for the credit, you have to sell your fuel to a third party entity. So if ADM was selling their ethanol to themselves, that would not be a third party entity. So in order to add on the SAF and to be able to double dip and get the credit on the ethanol and the credit on the SAF, I'd assume they'd have to uh, put the SAF plant underneath a different entity or some type of a different legal structure. Again, I don't know how the details of this is going to shape up. That's part of what's still kind of yet to shake out here this week. But a big deal, Bob, for sure. And for all of us on here, SAF, of course, could be a huge opportunity. It's supposed to be at 3 billion gallons of production by the end of this decade and 35 billion gallons of production by 2050. And we have a long way to go to be able to get there. So if these policies enable that SAF production, there's an incredible demand and ambition to produce SAF, but we'll see how the policy enables it to really ramp up. So, okay, switching gears a little bit, want to hit on a couple other things here. One, really excited to announce that Continuum Ag has been named the Small Business of the Week by the Senate Small Business Committee, which is quite the honor. We were nominated by Senator Joni Ernst and her staff. And they just announced yesterday, and the press release went out late yesterday, and I shared it here this morning on my Twitter, that Continuum Ag is the small business of the week. So hopefully Senator Ernst and the rest of them continue to do their part in DC to enable us to really expand the work that we were doing. But they wanted to highlight us, for our work, of course, with helping farmers implement soil health practices, manage their data, and of course, get ready for the 45Z credit and be able to really help to maximize that credit. So honored to be the small business of the week. And when they hit us up about it, I'm like, all right, that's great. Oh, honored, of course, to even be considered for the small business of the week. But hey, make sure that this thing doesn't flop, or else it's be the small business of the week, and not end up being that massively scalable of an opportunity. But again, things look really good. Really honored to be the small business of the week, and try to do our part to take these policies set up by our elected officials, try to make them good, and implement them the way that the policymakers intended, which basically, in my translation of that, would be they want the biofuel producers to make some money on this. They want farmers to be able to make some money on this, and drive the adoption of regenerative practices, which is ultimately our goal at Continuum Ag. Help farmers improve their profitability via improving their soil health, and I think 45Z is the 45Z is the biggest opportunity in the U.S. to be able to drive the adoption of regenerative practices, because it's by far the biggest financial opportunity, and it gives farmers a new scoreboard that they can adopt these practices the best way that it fits for their operation, and be significantly financially incentivized to change practices and further implement these soil health building systems, um, and at scale, because of the scale that already exists in the biofuel market. So that's why we're doing this. But excited for being featured by the Senate. It's a pretty sweet deal. So, and part of it going forward would be that Senator Ernst is planning on setting up an event with us to actually deliver the award and this fancy plaque deal and all that in person. So we'll keep y'all posted. We'll see if we have a nice little party here later on in the summer or something like that. But yeah, pretty sweet deal. So thanks to Senator Ernst and her crew for that. Oh, okay, booking claim. Thank you. Let me get to that. Credit goes to the fuel producer of the transportation fuel, road ethanol, or SAF. Yeah, so Dad, the current version is that the the biofuel credit goes to the producer of the transportation fuel, but Senator Ernst has an amendment that again, before starting this chat, she had not yet actually proposed the amendment and actually got it voted on through the Votorama deal. But Senator Ernst has an amendment that would say, no, if you are using the alcohol to jet pathway, the ethanol producer and the SAF producer would each be able to claim the 45Z credit, which, yeah, to your point, it's kind of against the root intent of 45Z. I think that it would be whoever's producing the transportation fuel, they get the credit. But in order to actually allow the ethanol to jet process to actually take off here, Senator Ernst has an amendment to say, hey, you'll be able to get credit for your ethanol and for the SAF, and double dip a little bit, enabling that to go. So we'll see if they actually get that done, or if they're going to run out of time and that one's not going to happen. But crossing a couple messages with some of my contacts at LanzaJet yesterday, obviously they were very excited to have that go forward, or hope anyway that it would go forward. But we'll see what happens. Okay, the book and claim piece and all that. Now, what the Senate is putting together here and what we're getting put together in the big beautiful bill is not the final rules. We're not going to know about book and claim. We're not going to know about book and claim versus mass balance. We're not going to know about the final carbon intensity calculator to be used on the feedstock. We're not going to know some of those details yet. That all is part of the rulemaking process led by the Department of Treasury, and then they work with Department of Energy and Department of Ag to write the final rules. And remember, the Biden administration, they put together a draft of rules and an intent to propose rules, but they did not include in there the feedstock component that was in the USDA's proposed rule or proposed guidance, I guess, about quantifying carbon intensity of biofuel feedstocks. But those two components, the Treasury stuff and the USDA stuff, they don't actually tie together the way that they were left by the Biden administration. So what the Senate is doing right now, what DC is doing right now, is saying we cut most of the programs in the Inflation Reduction Act. However, we want to keep 45Z, and here's the extension of the deadline, and here's how the financials are going to work out and all that. So Congress, and then of course President Trump, they are saying keep 45Z, then the Department of Treasury, namely the IRS, then they would go write the rules and have in their rules around book and claim versus mass balance accounting, utilizing the GREET model or the USDA model for the feedstock carbon intensity calculation. All those things are yet to come. So now, if it is book and claim, and if it does still start on the 2025 season, then yeah, our 2024 corn and soybeans would absolutely still be subject to this credit because all of the fuel that's produced up to this point, obviously none of it has been produced with 2025 crop. It's all with 2024 crop, but 2025 biofuel production is still what is subject to the 45Z credit. So, as far as what I've seen in all these things, none of them push back the actual starting date. Some of them change some of the rules starting in 2026 for your production in 2026, because if you've been producing your biofuel under the current assumed rules for 45Z in 2025, they don't want to penalize you essentially for that. So there's a couple provisions that, especially for SAF, that start in 2026. But my understanding of everything that's been proposed so far is that it does not change the actual start date. Therefore, your 2024 crop would absolutely still be subject to 45Z. Now, that wouldn't only be for mass balance, or would not may not only be for book and claim. If your crop actually did go to a biofuel producer, whether it be direct or via an aggregator, even if it's mass balance, your 2024 crop may still need to be basically backtracked and calculated and still be part of the program. Now, if it's mass balance and you fed your 2024 crop to livestock or it got exported, you may be SOL. But if your 2024 crop physically did go to a biofuel production facility and it's mass balance, that's going to need to be tracked and would be likely eligible for the credit the way that's set up. That'd be the intent. But if it's book and claim, now you don't have to necessarily document where you sold your crop to. If it's book and claim, you can just create your CI certificates, like what we've already done on 29 million verified certificates that we did earlier this year. You just, it's got a bug in my mouth. uh, you just create you create your 2024 CI certificates, and then you can sell them via the book and claim markets to any biofuel producer. So don't count out 2024 yet, but also, of course, be documenting your practices here in 2025. With that being said, we really have not turned back on our CI certification program, right? So last year and finalized earlier this year, we have been able to build out the ISO 14064 and 14065 audit protocols and or MRV protocol with eco engineers. We were able to pass the audit on 29 million bushels. So we know how to generate these certificates, but we've just been basically sitting and waiting until we get clarity before actually moving forward to create more verified CI certificates. Pending some of these rules getting finalized, or pending the law here getting finalized on Friday, we anticipate that on Monday we'll turn back on CI certification and get ready to go and generate the next batch of verified CI certificates. However, we're really not moving forward with CI certification right now. Instead, we still have our TopSoil Connect program going. It's $3 an acre. You start getting your data put together in topsoil, and then you'll get a $2 discount, $2 per acre discount on CI certification as that turns back on next week. So a really good opportunity that if you haven't started getting your data put together on either your 2024 crop or your 2025 crop, you can get in on Topsoil Connect here right now for $3 an acre, start getting your data put together, and you get a $2 an acre discount on your CI certification. So definitely encourage you to hop in on that opportunity as we still have it. Um, and ultimately for us, it's farmers, your data is what's going to bring value here. And if you believe that this is going to happen the way that obviously we do, we got to get ready to rock and roll. We have been able to get farmers some regular carbon credits and carbon inset credits through some other programs, and all for collaborating with companies on other programs and whatnot as well. But we of course focused here on the um, focused here on the 45Z program as option number one, and some of these other more traditional carbon programs as additional options, especially for farmers that may not uh, be growing corn, soybeans, or may not qualify for 45Z. But TopSoil Connect still available now. Get you a discount on CS certification. Last couple things here. Obviously, monitoring extremely closely what's going to happen with the big beautiful bill and 45Z. Trump is going to be in Iowa on Thursday. I don't think the bill's going to be done for him to sign it then. I think he's going to be announcing stuff for uh, US's 250th birthday next year. And talking about, I think they called it the National Fair or something like that. Trump had announced some stuff, I forget, right around the end of the campaign or maybe early after the campaign. They were announcing doing a big national fair at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. So I assume that's what they are going to be announcing details of that when Trump is at the fairgrounds and here in Iowa on Thursday. But regardless, we'll be monitoring the bill very, very closely. And our current anticipation is that the bill gets signed in on Friday. We'll send out a press release and email and blast on social media and stuff. And we'll do an emergency press conference first thing Monday morning, and be able to get everyone the final details of exactly what's in the bill. I laid out a lot of the kind of components, but anticipate that we will do an emergency press conference Monday morning and be able to talk more thoroughly about it, and we go from there and we get to work. So with that, happy to have other conversations and stuff as well. Continue to monitor if you're seeing things that I'm not seeing. Would love to have conversations and pass along any of that info. We'll continue to monitor what's going on in DC very closely, and we'll keep fighting for our elected officials to make this thing good. They've got a lot of work ahead of them here this week, and we'll see how it shapes up. I do not envy what they are going through at all, but we'll see what happens. So, anyway, appreciate everyone hopping on here today, and we will see you likely on Monday. Would be the plan. Plan on emergency press conference Monday morning, but we'll see how things shape up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.